What's up, everybody? Welcome into a new edition of the By the Horns podcast presented by Toyota. Note that Toyota has more all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive vehicles than any other brand. So find yours and shine on. Toyota, let's go places. Cam Smith back once again with my man Casey Johnson, CHSN Bulls insider. KC is jet setting, traveling across the country as this Bulls team continues on with this 6-game road trip. And so they got a nice win last night. Monday, March 17th against the Utah Jazz. KC, you're in Phoenix right now, but let's start it there with what we saw last night from this Bulls team. Suffered their first loss on Saturday against the Houston Rockets in Houston, snapped that 4-game win streak, but it was good to see them bounce back and get their lick back against a Utah team that came into Chicago, the United Center, and surprised the Bulls with a win. So just your early impressions on what you saw last night from that team.
I mean, it's a team that's taking care of business. I mean, the Jazz are really not trying to win games, so but they have professional players. And what stood out to me, Cam, was just the number of contributions the Bulls got. I mean, obviously Coby keeps doing Coby things, and I know we're going to dive into that a little bit. But you had multiple contributions. Kevin Huerter had a nice game. 𝗦𝗫 𝗟𝗶𝘶 had a nice game. You know, even Vooch, with how poorly he shot the ball, ended up with a double-double. I thought Dalen Terry was excellent off the bench. And then Tre Jones, man, I know we're going to get into him. He's just he's making himself some coin. That's how I would. So that's what the big takeaway for me is, just how many people contribute to the victory last night.
Yeah, that was impressive, man. So many different guys. And it was like a band of brothers type feel with that Bulls team last night against Utah, because there were moments where the Jazz started to threaten with that lead that the Bulls had. But then obviously you saw so many different contributions that you mentioned, like Coby White, of course, Tre Jones. 𝗦𝗫 had a really nice game as well in 30 minutes, 17 points, 9 rebounds. And Vooch struggled 0 for 9 up until a point where he was able to make his first shot in his three. And I saw your tweet saying that, Vooch just put his arms up in the air like, thank you, basically, basketball guys, for having mercy on me because he was struggling. But you said this team took care of business, and that's exactly what it was, because you could have came into this game thinking that the situation with the Utah Jazz, they're clearly not trying to win ball games and had their eyes set on the 2025 NBA draft. And you think that, all right, well, this Bulls team may just kind of let their guard down a little bit, but that wasn't the case. And that's impressive to see from this group that has pushed themselves forward in the win column, one, but then also in the Eastern Conference standings too. And we'll dive into that a little bit more, but the Bulls sit 9th in the East. But KC, we talked about this last week, and let's just not even talk about it later when it comes to this Bulls team and the play-in and where they are now. We talked about it last week of them squarely. Yes, they're in the play-in, but also with room to grow and improve their spot in the East with the play-in. So 9th right now, could we have more room for growth with this team and maybe moving to 8th or 7th? Because I believe the last time I checked, they're 2 full games, I believe, behind for that 7th spot. Correct me if I'm wrong on that case.
They're 3 back of 7. Okay. They're 3 back of Atlanta in 7 and 2.5 back of Orlando in 8. Orlando obviously had that impressive victory over Cleveland. Look, there's a lot of basketball left to be played. They certainly could slip back to 10, although I don't see it the way Miami is tail spinning. But the big point to make here, Cam, and I shared this in the broadcast last night, the pregame show when Kendall Gill asked me about it, is like, what's the mentality in the locker room? You talk to players in the locker room, they're like, hey, let's keep climbing. I mean, that's their focus. Is like, let's just focus on us, play each game the best of our ability, try to get a win, and keep climbing. There's no limit to where we can go. So they know what's at stake. They want to keep playing basketball, and they want to get into the play-in tournament and then even beyond. So that's a good mentality to have, unless you're a draft pick favorite. We are blowing up that draft pick.
Yes.
But it's part of the mentality of the organization right now.
Exactly, because they want to make sure they keep the integrity of composition intact. But it has to be impressive too, Casey, and this is something for me, seeing it. And we have a team that after the trade deadline, you have new faces with the team. You're trying to gel and make sure that things work and get those guys comfortable. But it feels like they've done it at an accelerated pace with Kevin Huerter and Tre Jones and Zach Collins. So for you seeing that and covering this team and just seeing how those guys mesh in the locker room, how impressive has that been?
Yeah, I talked to Kevin after the shoot around Monday in Salt Lake City for something I'm going to be using later in the week. And at one point I just flat out asked him, "Are you surprised at how pronounced of an impact you, Tre, and Zach have made? Coming to a new organization?" And he said, "Not really, just because two of us have been traded before, so we had experience with that. It was a little bit of adjustment for Kevin in the sense that the last time he was traded from Atlanta to Sacramento was during the offseason. This was an in-season trade." But he said all three players just talked about, when they first got here, this style of play really fits their games. And you've seen that, obviously, ad nauseum since they've been playing. And obviously Tre's getting the opportunity with all the injuries to the guard core right now. And Zach took advantage of Vooch's injury to make his impact. He's slipped back a little bit, but he is ahead of Jalen Smith in the rotation. So it's undeniable. Those three guys have changed the complexion of this team a little bit. They've changed the fortunes of this team a little bit, and they just fit right in seamlessly, which is not always easy to do with an in-season trade.
Definitely. And one guy specifically in Tre Jones, you brought him up. 18 and 12 assists last night against the Utah Jazz, his first double-double as a Chicago Bull. And we've seen the scoring side of Tre Jones recently, and not something you necessarily attach to his name because he's a consummate point guard, set guys up. He'll get his points here and there, but just the offensive run that he's been on, I think is a great point of view. And also just all three guys saying that their games really fit this style of play that the Bulls are playing. And you see it with Tre Jones, where it's not even just him getting points on backdoors or cutting without the basketball. Like, he's being an option in terms of having that basketball tossed to him and going to make a play and getting his bucket. So how impressed have you been with Tre and what he's been able to do, especially in place of guys like Lonzo and Josh, who's been out with the ankle?
And Io.
And Io, yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy. We've talked about, joking how many guards they've had all season, and now, the guard depth has been needed. The cool thing about in-season trades from a media perspective is you get to watch new guys' games and try to get to know them as both players and people. And one thing that has really stood out to me, seeing Tre up close, rather than just catching him here and there on TV, how crafty he is around the basket, because, he is a legit 6'1", so he's not, a completely smallish guard, but that's still on the smaller end of NBA guards, particularly in today's day and age. And his ability to create space and score over bigger people near the basket has really, really impressed me. Like you, Cam, I did not expect the scoring punch that we're seeing, because all we heard advertised was how much of a true point guard he is. And 12 assists speak to that. But, yeah, his scoring has been consistent and it's been legit. And to me, it's coming off IQ and craftiness around the basket. He's not scoring a lot off of jump shooting. It's more on paint attacks and using his smarts and wherewithal to create around the basket.
And I think the same can be said about Kevin Huerter as well. Like, he has a reputation of being a shooter, but the rebounding component I maybe didn't pay attention to when it came to what he's been able to do on the glass. But 9 rebounds, 17 points, and 9 rebounds for Kevin Huerter last night in that Bulls win. Again, you learn about their games, and then also some things about their games that you didn't really pay attention to or understand how impactful they are from that category. But especially for a guy that Kevin Huerter, that has good size for a shooting guard, for him to help out on the glass in a situation for a Bulls team, as Billy Donovan has mentioned, that they have to do a better job of rebounding the basketball, especially after that loss against the Houston Rockets. It's something that, again, it opens your eyes to just his complete game and what he's able to do other than just shooting the basketball.
Yeah, I started smiling when you brought that up, because I felt like, did you listen to our interview in Salt Lake City yesterday? Because I haven't shared that with anybody yet.
I was there in spirit. I was there in spirit, Casey. I was there in spirit.
That's exactly what I was talking to you about. Like, are you more than just a spot-up shooter and a three-point shooter? And I feel like I knew the answer to that, but I need him to say it. So I lobbed it up there for him, and he pointed to exactly what you're talking about. Rebounding, his ability to cut and play instinctual basketball. He had a really interesting line that I had not thought of before. He says, I feel like I can create offense even without the ball in my hands. And that's just by, cutting and finding seams in the defense, and then obviously sometimes spacing the floor because defenses have to honor him. So, he's he's aware of his reputation of some, I think, I don't want to say this too harshly, but ill-informed observers that he's just a shooter.
Mm.
He is not just a shooter. He is a multi-layered basketball player, and I think you're seeing that in his early tenure here with the Bulls.
And that's the cool thing about Tre Jones and Kevin Huerter, where guys assume that they're one way, but then in their minds, you know that they're competitors. They're like, no, there's more to my game than just what you think you know me as. And that's what we've been able to see from both of those guys. And also Zach Collins as well. I think his passing ability has been something that's been underrated. You've seen him do this with the Bulls in terms of finding guys off of cuts and then knowing just, timing-wise and rhythm-wise of when to attack, when to find the cutters, or when to just move the basketball and get it out of his hands. So, again, to your point, you have the in-season trade, you have 3 guys coming over, you don't know what you're going to get from them, and then they surprise you with other aspects of their game that has helped this team put themselves in the 9th spot in the Eastern Conference, KC.
Absolutely. And the other thing that is notable here is just how quickly, the holdover players welcome these guys because, these guys have come in and taken minutes from some other people. And, it's still a pretty close-knit locker room from what I've been able to glean. And I think it's just an organization that is focused on winning, again, at the expense of draft lottery odds. But here we are. That's another element to this is just how embraced the new players have been by the holdover players and obviously the coaches as well.
I love that point, KC, because I believe that if the players that were on this roster before the new guys came in, if they didn't embrace the new guys, Huerter, Tre Jones, Zach Collins, I think that that's a look at who's really in charge of that locker room and how they're setting the tone. And we know it's obviously a positive tone because Coby White is one of the leaders for this team. And so I think him embracing these guys and just having them just fit seamlessly within the offense and really looking for them at times, definitely looking for himself because Coby White has 9 straight games of 20-plus points. So he's really been on a hell of a run. And so we're just going to continue giving Coby flowers because he deserves them with what his game has been and how he's really elevated his game, KC. This is a guy that you feel attached to, right? Because obviously the Bulls, they drafted him. He's been with the team 6 seasons at this point, and you just seen his game continue to grow and grow. What has stood out to you from Coby on this just 9-game straight run of 20 or more points?
Yeah, we're not the only ones giving him his flowers because, as everybody knows, he's the reigning Eastern Conference Player of the Week, which is a pretty – I mean, people say, oh, just Player of the Week honors. He's only the 12th Bull in franchise history to get it. Now, Michael did it a zillion times, but it's still pretty legit and pretty cool. What stands out to me, Cam, is easy. It's his ability to get to the line and finish near the rim. He is not doing he's not doing this streak on 3-point shooting. We've seen Coby get hot and on a heater from 3-point range before. We have not seen this 3-level scoring ability that he is showing. And man, the thing that always jumps out to me, and I know you and I have talked about this before, is he is strong. Guys were bouncing off of him last night sometimes when he was going to the rim. He is a very strong and legit 6'5" guard. He's very powerful through his upper torso and his shoulders. And so I think he's getting a line 5.7 times per game. 5.8 times per game in this 9-game stretch, and he's shooting over 90% from the line. So those are easy points. Those are free points. And I shouldn't say they're easy points because he's getting the line. That's the hard work. But once he gets to the line, you're just knocking him down. So that is definitely what jumps out to me about this stretch.
And I've also seen him, KC, and I'm sure you noticed this as well, that with his game, because to your point of him being a 6'5" strong guard, that he's starting to utilize a little post game as well when he kind of dribble penetrates and he'll get guys on his back and he'll either elect to, go for a fadeaway or just kind of put that shoulder into him and go right up to the rim. And so for me, that's another detail of his offense and his scoring that has really stood out to me, where he's going with the mindset of, I'm bigger than you, I'm stronger than you, so I'm just going to put you on my back and just decide whatever and however way I want to score against you, I'm going to do that. So that's been another impressive thing with Coby, along with him attacking the rim dunking on guys, getting to the free throw line, and not just being a 3-point shooter. So just the maturation of his game is really impressive. But I wonder if you've noticed that as well of Coby going to the post a little bit, not initially like going down to the blocking collar for the basketball,
Right.
but more so when he drives and he gets the guy either on his hip or on his back, he's electing to go for a fade or just going into the body of a defender and getting an and one or just getting himself to the line.
Absolutely. I think what that is not only reading the defense, but it's also a byproduct of him landing number one on opponent scouting reports now. I mean, as we all know, Zach LaVine is in Sacramento. We're going to see him on Thursday. Coby's it. I mean, Vooch is obviously somebody you got to account for, but Coby's it. Coby's got the ball in his hands more than Vooch. So Coby is doing all this while being number one on the opponent scouting report. And so, yes, he's had to add new wrinkles, new elements to his game, and that's one of them. So, I mean, it sounds like we're raving over the guy, but for a reason. He's the best player in the Eastern Conference this week. He's really, really good. And he's and it's cool to see just from where he started to where he is now, obviously.
Yeah, his shooting splits are definitely legit. Average 27 points, 7 assists, 4. I mean, it's like the numbers are there for Coby White and earning that Eastern Conference Player of the Week. And I love that you pointed out, KC. People are like, oh, it's Eastern Conference Player of the Week, big deal. No, it is a big deal because if you look at the guards and the players in the East, it's not an easy thing to achieve. So it's a testament to Coby and just what he's done individually, but also how he's helped lead this team to where they are now, especially during those games in that week of play to get him that Eastern Conference Player of the Week. We always have to shine a light on, I guess we can still call him the young rookie. It doesn't feel like he's a young rookie anymore, especially when you have your 17th consecutive start in 𝗏𝗏 𝗠𝗏. But 𝗏𝗏 is a guy 17-9 last night, and I thought it was really nice that former Chicago Bull Lauri Markkanen said some nice things about 𝗏𝗏 and just his game and just his mentality of a guy that you can see that loves to compete and get after it, even though at one point he tried Walker Kessler on a dunk attempt and got blocked, but he still kept coming after him. So 𝗏𝗏 just getting a lot of love and respect from players around the league. I think that's a testament to just how he's grown from what we saw 4 months ago to where he is now, KC.
100%. And real quick, before I answer that, I had to look it up because it was bothering me how many times Michael Jordan won Player of the Week. And how fitting is this? He won it 23 times. So
wow. The synergy. That's the synergy that we're getting on the By the Horns podcast. Yeah. And it's fitting that Michael Jordan got that 23 times. That's cool, KC. I love that, man.
Absolutely. But yeah, I mean, to me, okay, so Lauri says that's cool, but this comes on the heels of KD saying it. And I mean, like you say, you're seeing guys around the league recognize game. And the point that Lauri made, and this was in a nice article that Darnell Mayberry did over The Athletic, that I liked was saying that, he's talked to Vooch, and what he hears from Vooch is that he's a good kid and a hard worker too. And, that's the stuff we see every day, is his ability to accept coaching, his ability to hold himself accountable, his ability to want to get better. That's the stuff that really stands out off the court. And then on the court, yeah, I mean, we've talked about it for a while. His desire to try to dunk everything near the rim, sign me up for that. And then, last night you talked about Huerter's rebounding. I mean, he tied a career high in his young career with 9 rebounds himself, just missed his first double-double. So a lot to like with 𝗏𝗏's performance in Salt Lake City. I talked to him a little bit afterward, and like a lot of these guys, they're not satisfied. They don't want to sit on their laurels. You can barely ask Coby White about the hot streak he's on. He does not want any part of it. He just wants to focus on hooping and winning, and that's how 𝗏𝗏 is kind of wired as well. So these are good traits to have if you're a Bulls fan.
I also noticed with 𝗏𝗏 that when he attacks the rim and the rim attacks, he's a little more creative with how he decides to finish things, right? I think he understood earlier on of the season that you can't go chest to chest with guys, right, or kind of go up of just like I call it like a freedom with your body in the air, that he understands that he will get knocked down and he probably won't get a call for that. But you're seeing him just be creative in how he finishes around defenders, over the top of defenders sometimes. And I think that's cool to see just the growth and maturation of him figuring things out, because it's a long NBA season, but also when you have a kid like 𝗏𝗏 and just he sees where he wants to go. Yep. And you see him taking those steps there. That's always pretty cool to see, because he gets it. He understands it. And it's something that we knew coming into the season, that when you speak to him and you sit down with him, you're like, Yeah, you're wired differently,
Yeah,
and to see him grow and mature throughout the season is really cool. It's really cool.
absolutely. Yeah, and you know, that many starts in a row for rookie is significant, and barring injury, knock on wood, he'll be starting the rest of the season. So that's going to be great experience to take into next season. Because that box will be checked. As far as in his rookie year, he got the starting experience and significant starting experience that you need to advance in this league, because you got to go through the bumps and bruises. We all know that. We've seen it with Coby. I mean, Kobe's been humbled many times, and to be where he is now on the other side of that is a testament to him. And you'd expect the same response from 𝗵𝗏 𝗟𝗶 as well.
All right, man. On the comments from Lauri Markkanen, which came off of the heels of Kevin Durant giving his love to 𝗵𝗏 and what 𝗵𝗏 has been able to show in his first NBA season. The Bulls have the Phoenix Suns tomorrow night. You're in Phoenix, KC, and it continues on with this road trip. 4 more games on the road for this Bulls team. So they have Phoenix. They're going to face off against 2 former Bulls in Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan. So that'll be interesting to see that first meeting against Zach since he's left the team and been away from the team in that trade that was involved right before the trade deadline. And then they have the Lakers and then finish off with Denver. So what are your expectations for a team that continues to say, hey, to hell with the draft pick, let's just keep winning games and try to maybe improve our spot in the play-in?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough trip. I mean, these are high-quality opponents, even though the Suns obviously are far underwhelming where people expect them to be. But, I mean, the Lakers seem to not have missed a beat with LeBron out because Luka's kind of taken over. And then Denver's Denver with an impressive road victory in Golden State last night. So I know that Sacramento game will be emotional. I'm bad at predictions. I don't like doing predictions. I like to let the games play out. But if you're a Bulls fan, I mean, a 3-3 record on this trip would be a huge victory. So if 500, that would be. I know anybody in that locker room. Well, they'd probably want more, but I know anybody in the organization that has a little more detached view would take a 3-3 trip. So we'll see where it goes. I think these are tough games. I mean, the one thing that helps with the Kings is that that's a back-to-back for Sacramento as well, although they play at home both nights. So we'll see. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this team returns to the United Center when they get back in that first home game. When they get back to the United Center, we'll be against the Los Angeles Lakers. So that'll be interesting to see, one, who's going to be on the court for the Lakers before they even get back to the United Center, because they have to play LA first in LA, or the Lakers in LA, and then come back here. So will LeBron be on the court? He's still dealing with his injury, and it'll just be just out of curiosity of how the Bulls approach those games and those matchups, because again, they've been riding a wave and it's been very impressive. We touched on a number of guys in Coby White, 𝗵𝗏 𝗟𝗶, Kevin Huerter, Zach Collins. We talked about Tre Jones, and this is a team that has a lot of guys that are trying to impress not only the Bulls but also potentially other teams if the Bulls decide not to bring them back for next year. So just kind of doubling back on the Tre Jones conversation and what he's been able to be for the team since coming over, but especially recently with his stretch run of games, coming off the first double-double last night as a Chicago Bull against the Utah Jazz with 18 and 12 assists. Do you feel when it comes to Tre Jones that the Bulls are really looking intently on bringing him back next year and re-signing him? Because it feels like he just, again, with this offense, fits very seamlessly in what he's able to do in his role, whether it's off the bench or in the starting group.
Yeah, I mean, I know internally that they like him a lot, and they, in an ideal world, would be able to re-sign him. But I do think it's going to be difficult for a couple of reasons. I mean, obviously, the first priority in terms of free agency is your own restricted free agent in Josh Giddey. And then obviously they've already re-signed Lonzo Ball, so you have a backup point guard there. And then, Coby and Ayo are under contract, and I would be very surprised if Jevon Carter turns down his player option, because he won't make that what he's due next season on the open market. So that's a lot of guards right there. So I know they like him a lot. The question might get broadened to say, like, should have the Bulls maybe tried to trade Lonzo at the deadline and turn that into an asset and then re-sign Tre? I don't know, man. To me, Lonzo, it's such a feel-good story. I don't mind the loyalty being shown both ways there. It's such a team-friendly deal. You can do that dance again next deadline and flip him if you need to. And he was playing at a very high level until he re-injured that wrist injury. And Tre Jones would not have had that opportunity if that hadn't happened. And that's not a knock on Tre. That's just the reality of the situation. So it's going to be a tough one. I know that I can just report that I know he's valued extremely highly internally. And Billy Donovan, I mean, you heard it what Billy Donovan said. He's got the it factor. I mean, that's not a idle compliment. So stay tuned on that one. But I do think with all, the main order of business is going to be the Giddey talks. That's going to be the main order of business.
KC, we appreciate your time always, man, for tapping in with us on the By the Horns podcast presented by Toyota. Toyota has more all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive vehicles than any other brand, so find yours and shine on. Toyota, let's go places. Hey, the Bulls are stacking W's. They're like, hey, to hell with that pick in 2025. We're just trying to improve our spot maybe in the play-in, but we will make sure that we hit everybody when it comes to the latest and greatest with this Bulls team. So for KC Johnson, I'm Cam Smith. Thank you for listening to the By the Horns podcast. Everybody that's liking and subscribing and sharing, we appreciate you. And definitely tap in with KC's fast break. And also when he reaches out to get those questions for his mailbag. So make sure you get them off to KC. All right, we'll see everybody soon.